Hi, welcome to QOTPOD. Ali Yates here. It's I'm really proud of this one, really good one this week. But before we get into the detail, I just wanted to put a shout out to a gentleman called Tom Large from AFC Wimbledon. He has done the Tom Large Report, which is a little mini-series podcast related to AFC Wimbledon, Exeter City AFC and Newport County. It's available on Spotify and it has been put on a link on our Twitter account. And he's done an interview with myself, which I was really honoured to do, and I hope I did the club proud. And he's also done one with Nick Hawker that followed, and it was the weekend of the Friday before the Accrington game and the evening with Brian McDermott that it was recorded. So I'm going to wish him well for his university course, because it's part of his dissertation. He is a real up-and-coming sports journalist, and he does a lot at AFC Wimbledon TV, I believe. Right, so well done to Tom Large at the Tom Large Report. Exeter City, 6 defeats on the bounce. It's a little bit frustrating. We've lost by the odd goal on occasions. We really need to tighten up and actually drag out a result. Long game to Ipswich, and obviously recording it just before then. This part, the close of the show will be afterwards. So that's a tough ask, but we must get a result against Morecambe. And the good thing about Morecambe is we've got a sellout. Absolutely brilliant. Right. Trust news, a few little trust updates. First, shout out and well done. And I was going to say happy retirement, but that's not right. He's not that old. Sorry, Phil. Phil Burden is stepping down as secretary. What a good effort he's done. He's gone to do other things, and he has been a stalwart of the trust over the last couple of years. I also noticed that we signed up a vodka brand at the club. Interesting branding. That was signed off in the minutes of the meeting, which is good. I see also we've got 3,726 members, excluding junior Grecians, which is a good number, but I think that's a little bit down. And I would very much recommend, if you're after a ticket at some of these sellout games, is that you join the trust, you pay in and become a gold member after a couple of years, or a silver member, gold member, and give yourself an opportunity to get into the ballots to get tickets. But it's if we can get that up to 4,000 and over, that would be amazing. And with a 7,000 crowd, that is fully obtainable. Right. Also one last thing. Well done, Ryan Eilott, for standing up as the new trust secretary. Good luck to you. I hope you enjoy it, and thanks for stepping forward to volunteer. Right, on to the podcast now. I hope you enjoy it. Enjoy the show. Right, welcome back to QOTPOD. Ali Yates. I'm not going to introduce myself again. I always say that. It'll be at least episode 20 by the time this comes out. I've actually losing track, as I say every time. Now, I know I put a little tweet out to people. This one got another country in, which is really important. While we go worldwide and talk to fans from football clubs on this occasion. So we're going to be talking, and sorry, just to brag a little bit, USA, Japan, Spain, Australia, and now we have Scotland. And I'm going to introduce a director of Motherwell, director of the Well Society, I believe, which is one of the owners of Motherwell, which I'm sure he will explain. So firstly, Derek Watson, how are you? Are you well?
Good. All good, Al. Thank you very much for having us on. And, great to speak to members and owners of other fan-owned football clubs across the UK. I suppose there's lots that we can learn from each other. So looking forward to hearing all about your football club and hopefully telling you a little bit about Motherwell as well.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because I'm going to do a little bit of introduction for context with the beauty of Wikipedia. So Motherwell is on the, and if I got this wrong, please shoot me down, right? Has a population of, is it 32,120?
Yeah, it can't be far off that. Maybe in recent years that's went up slightly. There's been a lot of new build houses in the surrounding areas. So I would say around about 40,000 would be accurate.
And it's part of the Glasgow conurbation, right? But there are, from what I can work out, a few little towns around it, like, for example, Wishaw. It's a home, and this is really interesting because when we did Athletic Club Bilbao, I said that correctly for the person who did the Yatesism, right? They are based on iron and steelworks, right? And Motherwell, was based on heavy industry, munitions. Is it bridge bits and building trams? Is that correct?
It probably sounds about right. We were once the Steelopolis, the biggest steel producers in Europe. Unfortunately, that was a long time ago. But yeah, that we like to remind people of that as well.
So, and for those of us that are old enough to know, I think Ravenscraig is in that part of the world. Is that right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, the Ravenscraig Steelworks is just a stone's throw from where I'm sitting at the moment, or certainly what's remaining of the Ravenscraig Steelworks is still there.
Cool. I'm glad. And you are known as the Steelmen. Is that right?
That's exactly it. Yeah, exactly it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, that's interesting. There was a siren. I don't think they've come to arrest you or me. And don't worry about noises. We are authentic because the last one we did in a car workshop, which is a bit of a long story. But other good things about Motherwell area: William Grant whiskey, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, not far from here as well. Yeah.
So
you've certainly done your research, Al.
Yeah, I do try. Now, I looked through the brief history of Motherwell, but I'm going to ask you to do that a little bit in a minute. But we're a similar size trust to you, and we're not bragging about numbers. Slightly smaller, I think you are, but this may have changed. What I found really interesting, you've got 3,000 members, and I believe your playing squad and manager are members of the Welsh Society. Is that correct?
Absolutely, Al. Yeah, we've got around about 3,500 members and continuing to rise by the day, which is great. And what we like to do when everyone joins the football club, or when we get a new player or a new manager, we try and put that into their contracts. You know, that we would like to see them sign up to the Welsh Society and buy into the community ethos of the football club. I suppose once they're in the door, within the first few days, making them really understand what it means to be a community club here in North Lanarkshire.
And I was quite taken by that because, and I love comparing what different trusts have done or fan bases have done. I don't think we do that, although I'm hoping that there might be one or two members that are of the playing squad that are trust members. But if any of our players or management team are listening, get yourself signed up to the trust. The more the merrier. Be community orientated. So give us a bit of history. I think that you're sitting safely, like Exeter, in mid-table in the Scottish Premier League at the moment.
So we have just finished the main part of our season, Al. So the way it works in Scotland, for those that don't know, is we play 31, 32 games. I should know this exactly. And then the league splits into two. So it splits into the top six and the bottom six. 33 games. There we are. It's terrible that you know more than me, Al. But yeah, we play these 33 games. The top six split, and then they play 5 games against each other. The bottom six then play each other in 5 games. So we are currently 6 points off the playoff relegation zone. With our goal difference, I would say almost makes it 7 points. So we've got 5 games to play. We're not quite safe yet, but touch wood. I would like to think that we'll be okay. I think if we get a win a week on Saturday, or a win and a couple of draws, then we should be all right going into next season. Motherwell, just to give you a bit background, I'm 33 years old, and Motherwell in my lifetime have never exited top flight Scottish football. So there's been one or two scares. A number of years back now, we did finish bottom, but Falkirk at the time who won the championship, didn't have a suitable stadium to come up. There was a rule where you had to have a 10,000 seater stadium, which has now been scrapped. And that saved us from relegation. So we should have been relegated once in those 33 years, but we've not yet. We also had a playoff match not too long ago against Rangers when they were demoted to the third league and on their way back up, which we won 6-1 over 2 legs. So there has been some scares, but I'm hoping that this year we're all clear out.
And do you know what? You've answered one of the other questions. I'm looking at the table with all the lines in, and you've just explained to myself and probably other English football fans of how it works. And then I'm going to scrap what I'm going to say next, because I was going to say your running looks really good, but you've really explained why your running looks really good. Because I was going to say you should be all right because you're playing some of the teams below you, but obviously you've just been pulled into play together. So
that's exactly it. It can make the league slightly more exciting, I suppose, because everyone wants to get in that top 6, and when you get there, you're then in the running for the European positions, which we were fortunate to get into last year. Or when it splits into the bottom 6, people are all playing each other, fighting for relegation or fighting for safety. So it's a different take. It's something that I don't think happens anywhere else in the UK at present, but it is exciting. My personal opinion, and I wouldn't say this is the opinion of everyone on our board, I suppose, but I would like to see Scottish football, the top flight of Scottish football, extended to include more teams. I think one of the problems that we've got at present is, in my opinion, again, I think a lot of the clubs are scared to play as many youth players as they can, or give young players a chance, because the margins are so fine. You can only be a few places away from guaranteeing yourself European football or guaranteeing yourself a relegation playoff. So a lot of the time I feel that teams round about the middle of the league, middle to bottom of the league, they always go for the tried and trusted players who've, maybe journeymen in that league that know that they've been there. And it's a real shame because there's so many clubs, like Motherwell, that have got a history of bringing through exciting, young talent who go on to bigger and better things and often go down your way and play in England, or even break into the national team as well. So there's lots of faults with the top 6, bottom 6 stuff, but it can be very exciting as well.
Indeed, and it's funny, interesting you say that, because if I was to say at our last game we played with Sheffield Wednesday away, and if I was to say that their social media tweeted along the lines of they're playing a right back as a striker, who I should point out scored, and 2 17-year-olds, because we are actually, I think I'm right in saying that 50% of our team this season has been through the youth academy and younger players, and the English league structure, the way it's set up, allows us to do that. Whereas I'm looking at some of the players that you've had, and I've been struggling to find some Exeter links, but I have found 2. There's one person that's very widely known, and that's Ryan Bowman. Yeah, and by the way, Ryan Bowman still comes and watches Exeter games occasionally when they're midweek. He appeared in the away end when we played Port Vale with Stoke Way, and although he's over at Shrewsbury. Sorry, Shrewsbury. And then one for the older members of the fan bases. It may be a bit old for you, but I remember him playing at the end of his career, Don Goodman.
Yes, I remember Don. Don was, when I was younger, a bit of a cult hero for me. He obviously had a bit of a glitzy career down south, and he came up to us at maybe not the best time. When Don was there, it was early 2000s, and that was a turbulent time for the football club. We ended up going into administration, which probably tells you all you need to know about why we had players like Don Goodman and Jed Brannan and Pat Nevin and Andy Gorham in goals, maybe on wages that we slightly couldn't afford, but Motherwell fans will remember Don very well and hold him in high regards as well. He was a great striker, I have to say.
And I think, let's just say Don came to us after his time with you, and was slightly maturer, shall we say,
slightly slower,
and slightly less successful, I would think. Whereas Ryan Bowman, he became a bit of a cult hero down here. Was he a bit of a cult hero? Was he in the team, or was he just doing quite okay?
Ryan was a good lad when he was here. Yeah, I'm sure Motherwell fans will have great memories of Ryan as well. We actually got to 2 cup finals under Ryan Bowman. Stephen Robinson was the manager at the time, who's now at St Mirren in our league. And he played up top with a striker called Louis Moult, who originally came through the ranks at Stoke.
Yes,
has played for teams down your way. Burton had a recent spell at Motherwell again, but injuries didn't do him kindly. So, that time when Ryan and Louis Moult were up front was great. It was brilliant to watch. Unfortunately, in both cup finals in the same season, we got beat by Celtic, but it was Brendan Rodgers' Celtic who won the treble that year. So I suppose we were playing one of the better teams in recent years of Scottish football. But Ryan was a pivotal member of that football squad, and it was great to watch as well. And you could tell, he really took to the local area and the local people, and people, I'm sure, when they think about Ryan Bowman in that time, will only have good things to say about him.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's exactly the same. Exeter. So Ryan, if you're listening, your head's not as massive and you don't drink what they say you drink, but you're a really good lad. So Motherwell, then, what's it like in Scottish football? Because I think there's a few more fans clubs around you, aren't there? Am I right in thinking Hearts Midlothian are a fans club as well?
Yeah, so Hearts Motherwell were the first top flight UK fan-owned football club, but since then in Scotland, Heart and Midlothian are now fan-owned. A much bigger club, I suppose, than Motherwell in some regards. They're from the capital city. Their fan base is significantly bigger than us. Their playing budget's a lot bigger than us as well. They very luckily, or probably not luckily, they deserved it, to be fair. They got European group stage conference football this year, so that'll only grow their revenue even more and maybe create a bit of a gulf between them and the rest of the league, other than Rangers and Celtic. But we've got Hearts of Midlothian in the top flight, and also St Mirren are also a fan-owned club as well. Very, very recently went through that transitional period. So it's great to see, and I think that you'll see that more in Scottish football. I think it's a model that certainly Hearts and St Mirren were probably the first clubs to admit that they looked at Motherwell when they were thinking about this and thought, do you know what? There's a club that seemed to be making fan ownership work. Yeah. Their Hearts are probably luckier than ourselves at present, as they tend to have and I'm not sure who this is, it's been kind of kept quite secretive, but they have a wealthy backer as well who buys into the fan ownership model and is happy to put some money into the club as well without wanting to totally take control of everything that happens there. So Hearts are a really good model if you're looking at fan ownership in Scotland, and I think that as a football club they'll only flourish under the current model that they've got.
Now that's interesting, because if you look at Exeter, it's been it's getting easier, but it has been a rough 20 years. But I say rough in terms of keeping the club together. We have steadily grown. We spent 5-6 years in non-league football, beat Man United in an FA Cup match. Sorry, not beat them. Sorry, drew with them, shall I say. It was like winning for us. And then got a replay when we were non-league, and that helped transform the club. And now there are people that, for example, our last home game of the season. So next up, by the way, is Ipswich Town's promotion party. So that's going to be away. That's going to be painful. But our last home game, we've got Morecambe coming down. And at the moment, the club are in talks with Morecambe, even though it's nothing to play for game, right, to open up the away end for Exeter fans and to give them a small seating area to be in. So, but there are some people that want us to look and seek for other investment. So it's interesting what you were saying there about Hearts. So what about Motherwell then? It's a bit tough. And you're doing yourselves down, because from what I can see, there's been Europa Cup, UEFA Cup, and Champions League football. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yeah. Under the fan ownership model, Al, we've certainly exceeded all expectations, and in the last 10 years. You know, we've as you've rightly touched on, we qualified for the qualifying rounds of the Champions League back in, I want to say that was 2012, where we played Panathinaikos, got an amazing trip over to Athens and played in one of the former Olympic stadiums over there, which was, you know, it's something that you can only dream of for a club of our size. You know, a home attendance is usually around about 5,000-6,000 if we're lucky. To go over there and play against one of these clubs that really are a household name was a great trip and a great experience. And, you know, I will not say much about the scoreline. They absolutely hammered us. But it was brilliant. We then dropped into the Europa League qualifiers, where we played Levante, who are out in Valencia in Spain, which was absolutely brilliant. And, you know, since then we've been very much up at the top end of the league under fan ownership, qualifying for European competition. And as we touched on when Ryan Bowman was here as well, reaching domestic cup finals. So it's been a great success. There's no doubt about that on the park, and hopefully long may that continue. I think you'll probably have the same challenges, Al. You know, I think when things are going well on the pitch, people seem to really buy into the model, and they're really happy with things and how things are going. And then as soon as things take a bit of a turn and it's a bit more turbulent, people start to ask more questions. But on the whole, you know, our fan base is extremely positive about the role that the Welsh Society play and the role that fan ownership plays, and I think people really buy into that. One of the reasons I would say is behind that is because, you know, you mentioned Don Goodman, and that time in the early 2000s for Motherwell Football Club was a very worrying time. You know, we went into administration, and it looked for a period of time that we might have been going out the game. There was a campaign at the time, organised grassroots fan-led campaign called Well Worth Saving, and the fans all clubbed together and essentially saved the football club. And I think because fans of a certain generation and of a certain age, the majority of the fans now probably remember those times. So when you're going out there and saying, who do you want to control the football club? You know, who do you want to really drive this forward? I think most fans would say they want it to be the people that care about that the most. You know, they would rather have the football club in their hands rather than an outside investor that might only be there for a few years and then walk away when the going gets tough. So because we've seen what it was like and the dangers of that, I think people have really bought into this model. And yeah, as I said, you know, there's been some great times at the cup finals, and the European competitions have been great. We've been all over Europe actually in recent years, and just in the summer there, I thought we were going to get a good run. We finished in the top half of the league again and qualified for the Europa Conference League, and we got a trip over to Sligo in Ireland, which I thought, this is going to be an easy one. We'll win this and we'll be through to the next round and get, I think it was Sparta Prague or someone else that we would have got in the next round. Unfortunately, we got beat by Sligo and ended up parting ways with Graham Alexander, who was the manager at the time. So it didn't quite work out as we'd hoped. But you know, even those trips to Ireland, you know, over on the ferry or the flights, however fans went there, you know, they've travelled in their droves, and people are really relishing the benefits and enjoying themselves at the same time.
It's really interesting you say that, and I missed something because we can literally at the moment only dream of doing stuff like that. So, but saying that, very random fact that comes up from Exeter fans is that we were the first team to go to Brazil and Argentina.
Amazing.
In 1914, and in 2014 we were invited back, and I was not one of the 350, 400 Exeter fans that went, and I think that's the closest we've come to do any travel. So although personally I can say that I have travelled from Greece to Wembley to watch Exeter play Morecambe when we lost. So I have done it the other way. But I think for us to go to places, we can dream. Do you think where things are, Rangers, Celtic, and everybody understands that, you know, you can really compete with them? Or is how does it work with the TV deals and all that sort of stuff?
The position we are in is extremely difficult. And that's also, firstly, geographically a challenge, because Motherwell is round about 20-25 minutes from Celtic Park, maybe half an hour from Ibrox where Rangers play. So there's lots of people from the west of Scotland traditionally go to follow Celtic and Rangers based on maybe their religion previously, or those who their parents have supported or their grandparents have supported over the years. So there's buses literally leave yards from Fir Park to go watch Celtic and Rangers. So in that regards, we're off. We're challenged straight away. And then I think, like you'll see down south, any successful clubs, your Manchester Uniteds, Liverpool, Chelsea's, Arsenal's, people from provincial towns always go to watch them because they want to follow, the best teams in the league. So it doesn't help where we are on the map, but it also doesn't help that the clubs that are just 20, 30 minutes up the road are also very successful clubs and have done, well globally over the years as well. So that's a challenge. In terms of the financial footing, we are years behind them. It's probably unlikely that we'll ever generate the money that they generate. And I actually think if you took Rangers and Celtic and put them in England, which is a hotly controversial topic for many, I think they would probably be top half of the Championship or bottom half of the Premiership over a number of years, because Celtic and Rangers are getting 50,000 fans every single week when they're playing against teams like Motherwell, St Johnstone, Dundee United, smaller clubs. 50,000 fans, can you imagine if they were playing against teams like your Liverpools or your Arsenals, etc. And I suppose when you look at Celtic as well, to a certain extent, they're a team that were built on Irish foundations, so they've got a bigger global brand there that they could almost sell as well. So they are clubs with aspirations, and it's the rest of the league that we would be lying if there wasn't if we weren't saying there was a huge gulf in finances between them. I think it's really interesting. It might sound slightly biased here, but I think it's interesting when we hear Celtic and Rangers fans moaning when they get into the Champions League or Europa League and getting beat 4 or 5-0 by teams like Real Madrid, and they say, but it's impossible. The gulf in finances there. And then when you actually compare what they pay players to what we pay players, it's probably quite relative.
Yeah. Well, and we suffer similar things. And what I'm about to say, if there's a Sheffield Wednesday fan that starts to listen to this, not being negative about your club, but so for example, going to Hillsborough at the weekend, right? And we walked under the main stand, literally the tunnel under. It's that big, which is unusual for us to go to a stadium that big. And the supercars, literally in a League One football team for a club like that, because they're getting 27,000 they had there, I think, there, and they get over 22,000. And even within a league, that's for us, it's miles apart. And then if you look at, I'm just trying to think of the probably the closest Premier League club to us is Bournemouth, but then that's 80 miles. But the weird thing about that is that they've grown up because of wealth, a wealthy person, and they actually were the same size as our football club, but they've had a wealthy owner come in. So, keep your model as you are, I would say, for your safety and stuff. And you're really developing it, aren't you? Because reading the website, there's loads of community stuff. It just all over the place. And I have to say, making it easy to sign up to your trust on the website looks really easy. So that's what Motherwell pride ourselves on. You talk about being competitive, and Rangers and Celtic will pay 10 times the wages that we'll pay. Aberdeen and Hearts will probably pay 3 or 4 times. Same with Hibernian, the wages that we could afford to pay our players. But I think our really unique selling point is the majority of people look at Motherwell in Scotland as the community club to aspire to be. We don't just want to have this tag where we say that we're a community club. We want to live and breathe that every day. So part of the Welsh Society's remit is very much working hand in hand with our community trust to promote the health and well-being and social programmes that they deliver across our region. And it's remarkable that the work that they do, Al, that they've got something for everyone. And I know that's a cliche, but they really do. They have classes for boys and girls at 2 years old. They call it our mini steel kids, where it's their introduction to football, all the way up to dementia and Alzheimer's classes called Football Memories, where they take in OAPs or people who are a bit in their later years, and they might not
They might not have a great deal of what happened last week, but they'll be able to tell you who their favourite players were in the 60s and 70s, and open up these discussions about their favourite players when they were younger. It really, really gets their mind going, and it's remarkable. So the community trust and at Motherwell Football Club do great work, and I suppose for us that's our most sellable asset. If we're wanting people to invest in our football club, we don't win trophies very often. The last time we won a trophy was 1991. So going back to your one earlier about the Ravenscraig Steelworks, it was round about the same time that was shutting down. But what we can say is, that the football club makes us proud on a daily basis by, giving back to the people in our area. So that's if we're going out to the community and going out to local businesses and local people and saying we want you to be part of our club, we've got these tangible assets that we can say, this is a difference that we're making in the local community. Come and be part of this journey with us. You won't win trophies, but you'll have a sense of pride and you'll feel like you're giving something back.
And it's almost a badge of honour. Yeah, I was leaving Sheffield at the weekend, and somebody was hanging out of his window going 2-1, and I pressed the button on the window, and I just looked over, smiled, and just went, "My friend, I'm not bothered. I'm following my team."
Yeah.
And I took the wind out of his sails, and we ended up having a conversation at the traffic lights. I said, I've just seen two 17-year-olds play for my team who I think could be, we're very proud of Ollie Watkins, the England striker, who's at Aston Villa. And, he's one of us. And it's like, if we're doing that, then that's brilliant. And sounds like you've got the same view. Now,
absolutely.
I'm going to change tack a little bit, because if I've done my research right, you have been talking about Pyro in Scottish football. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's a contentious issue for many, Al. So I'll let you ask your questions first. I mean, I would say that Pyro and the views in Pyro that I would talk about are very much my personal opinions, and maybe not necessarily the views of everyone on our board. So.
That's fine. So sorry. Let's just set the context a little bit to help, right? In our club, I would say some people say it's frowned on, and to just say no, I'm in the middle, right? Yeah. If it's done safely, then actually, in terms of an atmosphere perspective, it needs to be done safely. I'm not against it. I have seen an incident when Exeter at Fulham away in a cup, where somebody stupidly put one off in the wrong place and it wasn't the right time. I've seen other times where it's quite effective, and we both know what goes on at some of like Sparta Prague or somewhere like that in Eastern Europe, and some of it can be quite effective, and the fans' displays. So I think it's a really contentious subject, and it divides and conquers. But I was curious, and I know that you clearly said that it's not a view of the whole organisation, shall we say. But where do you think that is in Scottish football at the moment? What do you think is going to happen?
I think it's a really interesting one, Al, because it's 100% contentious, like you said, and it very much divides opinions, and I understand why it divides opinions. I think a lot of that comes down to a lack of understanding and a lack of conversation on both sides of the debate. So I think at the moment what you're seeing across the whole of the UK, quite notably in Scotland at the moment, is there's a rise in pyrotechnics to a level that I would never have predicted around about 5 to 10 years ago. It seems like every single weekend in Scottish football there's pyrotechnic devices getting set off at a number of grounds. So what I think this comes from is more Scottish teams playing in Europe. So as you touched on, they're going abroad and they're seeing this happening elsewhere and thinking, I want a bit of that. It looks like it's adding colour and atmosphere here. But on the other side, you've got the authorities that have never really seen this before. They don't understand what's going on. And there is a lot of scare stories in the media saying that they're extremely dangerous. I understand where that viewpoint comes from. You have to look at some of the tragic disasters that we've had in British football over the years, and a perfect example of that's the Bradford fire. We would never ever want to go back to that again. at Fir Park here, we've actually got a wooden main stand, so any pyrotechnic devices in there would could be potentially disastrous. So in my opinion, I think it's a great thing, but I agree with you, Al. I think there has to be a discussion about how do we do this safely, and my thought process behind that is it's not going to go away. So what you're going to end up with is you're going to end up with potentially more of the younger generations who seem more enthusiastic about this, either being criminalised, ending up with criminal records for things that and a lot of the time what I would say is it's probably younger kids who would never be engaging with police officers in any other walk of life. They probably come from decent backgrounds and don't commit many crimes, but they see this as something exciting. A lot of the time kids want to go into school on a Monday morning and say, oh, guess what I done at the weekend. So that the more that you say that something's illegal or that they shouldn't do it, the more that they want to push the boundaries.
I'm a little bit like that. And there's also the other side, and I won't name the ground, but recently my father, at 84 and not good on his feet, they went to body search him after me. And to which point I turned around and just went, are you serious? And actually he's a veteran. And I turned around and said, the regiment he was in, should I say, I said, he's 24 years full term. It's not the right thing. And then the converse side of that is when you've got a 13-year-old lad, say, which I have, and they're trying to body search them or young females at football. And I think that's all comes out of it. And that's why I think if it was controlled a little bit in a different way, then some of that might not happen.
Yeah, we played a team called Ollesund around about 10 years ago now, maybe more than 10 years actually. We played them in a European competition, and they're from Norway. Yeah. And our fans had a great affinity with this club. I remember we played them on a Thursday night and went for a couple of pints before the game at the local pub and thought, there'll be no away fans over at this. We hadn't heard of this club. The pub was full of orange and blue scarves and flags. The Norwegians had come over in their numbers. It was their first time playing in Europe as well, and they had a fantastic time. We met up with them after the game, and since then we've kept in touch. I've actually been over to one of their fans' weddings, and they were at our wedding last year. So it's great. Brilliant. But they actually have safe pyrotechnics in the Norwegian league. So as part of the experience when we were over there, we said, listen, is it possible to speak to your safety and security manager to find out how you do this? So what they do, it just seems like common sense to me, Al. It seems very, very easy, understandable. So if they want to have pyrotechnics at the game, and I'd imagine most clubs in England have this as well. At Motherwell, we have a pre-operations meeting where our security officers and our officials meet up with other security officers from the other teams, the police, everyone that's going to be involved in this. So similarly, they do that over in Norway, and they'll say, okay, the fan group this weekend want to let off 10 smoke bombs and 4 flares. Here's the devices that they're going to let off. So they give them to the fire brigade in advance, who do a test on them, make sure that they're from a recognised source or from somewhere that they can trust. They'll say, right, here's the areas of the stand that they're going to do it in, usually at the front, away from large groups of supporters. And they'll say, once you've done it, put it in the bucket here and leave it, and that's it. And they've been doing that for years and years now, Al, and there's been very, very little injuries or incidents at all. What I would say is there is some clubs out there who have fans who won't tell the authorities in advance, and they will still do it. So you're always going to get people that want to push the boundaries or go that step further. But that's been a success over there, and there's other countries. One I remember is Austria, and what they've done is they've actually developed cold flares. So they've got these flares that, I don't know what temperature your usual ones would burn at, but I can imagine that they're very, very hot. I've noticed chucked onto pitches in Scotland before on television, and it's a plastic AstroTurf pitch, and it burns the surface, which is counterproductive for anyone that would like to see this done in a safe manner. But over in Austria, I think it was Rapid Vienna, their fans developed these safe cold flares, so they burn at a cold temperature, and they've also done it in Sweden as well. And it looks the exact same. That visually it's spectacular, but it's just not dangerous. And it seems like there is ways to do this. I know that in Scotland there has been at club level, there's been some directors who've said that they're in favour of it. There's some that are, totally against it. But it's something that I think, and I would like the governing bodies to have a conversation about. And if it turns out it's not going to work and it's not for everyone, then fair enough. Or if there was going to be certain areas of the ground where you knew beforehand, if you're in that area, be aware that this might happen. If you don't want it there, you can avoid it. You can go and sit in the family end. It's
and I think that safety and control aspect, and it's interesting because we're a tight football club, really tight. There's a lot of, and the reason why we're selling out last game of the season, I think, has been a growth of the community aspect of the club over the last 10 years, because all those people are starting to get older, and our fans group, at one point it was called the Red Legion, and that's to do with the Grecian nickname, etc. At the moment, it's sort of died out a little bit, but there is a group of people that carry a drum everywhere, and they've had the drum checked, and they make loads of noise. We are quite a rowdy club, and we're quite proud to be a rowdy club, as in noisy fans. So, for example, Sheffield, somebody tweeted out who's the noisiest fans been to your club this season. Yesterday I saw, and I noticed Exeter came up in our league on multiple occasions as being noisy. So if you're going to encourage it, and I'm a great believer of the fun and the DJs, the music, goodness sake, Hillsborough at the weekend, they put the music up so loud, I had to jokingly turn around to a steward and say, you just turn that tannoy down. It was like, but the music was like all the good stuff that gets you going. And there's ways of entertainment, isn't there? And
I think that's very important now. I think that's that's how you encourage the future generations to want to keep coming, especially in today's day and age where there's so many other options for families to go to, that are often cheaper than football. So if they're coming to a soulless stadium where there's no noise and it's silent and it's maybe a 0-0 draw and it's cold and they're going home and they've had a rubbish pie and a flat cola or something, they're not going to want to come back. They'd rather go to the cinema or something next week. So
what I'd like to see, maybe we should, and thanks for talking about it. I know it's an interesting subject. You're probably surprised that I did that a bit of research and got there.
I'm actually glad you brought it up, Al. It's something that I feel quite passionately about, but I wouldn't want to speak on behalf of my colleagues who might disagree.
And that your views are your own. We are authentic. That's fine. So, I think, and by the way, we talk about Scottish connections. Our club, we've got a Scottish manager. We've got Kevin McDonald, Gary Caldwell, the manager, and James Scott. We've had a rival, shall we say, of a bit of a Scottish influence since the transfer window and the change of manager, because our old manager went to Rotherham, Matt Taylor. So we have done Scottish tours, right? I have a sneaky suspicion that Gary Caldwell might want to do a Scottish tour at some point. So I definitely think that we should put you guys on the list of clubs to come and visit and do and by the way, Exeter City, if you're listening, FC United on the way down and all the way up, right, has got to be done as well. And then see if we can catch up with St Mirren by the sound of it. I think that's a no-brainer.
It's something I would love to see is, some sort of fan ownership tournament. I know that they do this across Europe, and I know that FC United have played, FC United in Manchester that you mentioned there, have played in European competitions against teams from Strasbourg or Salzburg and things as well.
All over the place, they do.
Yeah. It's something that I think that we should celebrate more here in the UK, and I would love to see us play Exeter and FC as well. And that's another club that you talk about that are really passionate with their atmosphere and their volume. It could be a real festival spirit if we all came together and made something.
Exactly. And talking of festival spirit, because we're getting into fun things now, right? This is the first time I think I've interviewed somebody on the podcast that runs a podcast. So I did ask for the details, but I don't think you sent them to me. So I'd like you to shout them out now and just describe it, because I would like to listen to the Graham Alexander interview that you spoke about. But you've done some interesting people, haven't you?
Absolutely, Al. Yeah. So I have my own podcast called the DWPodcast. Not exactly an original name. It's just my initials, Derek Watson. So the DWPodcast.
Right.
And we've had various guests over the years from all walks of life, from musicians to politicians to football players, or people who are running their own businesses in the local community here as well. Right. So some people that you'll maybe have heard of is we've done one with McFly, the band, or Amanda Knox, who some of you might know from a recent Netflix documentary. As you mentioned, Graham Alexander, a former player for Preston and Burnley, and Motherwell manager as well. So there'll be some people in there that your listeners and viewers will definitely recognise. So it's just usually about an hour's conversation with people about their life and their story, and how they've got to where they are as well, and just trying to dig a bit deeper into what makes them tick and what makes them happy as well.
Brilliant. And that's definitely on the list, and I'll put a link up for everybody at this end. And I've had great fun, by the way, talking to you about Scottish football. But today, the mystery of TikTok, I got a video from one of my contacts came through, which was yourself, which quite surprised me. So I think there's a shout out needed for your almost Olympic time in the London Marathon, because you were down in London running at the weekend, weren't you? 3 hours 47, I think you said.
That's right, Al. Yeah, I'm still feeling quite sore and stiff at the moment, hobbling around. But it was a great trip. The London Marathon's always been something that I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, watching it on the television. And the atmosphere down there at the weekend was electric. People were cheering you on all the way, and there was bands playing and people singing, and it was brilliant up until the last half hour. And then I have to say it was torturous, but we got over the line.
And it says torturous for the benefit. He did say that you've done this before, and he did it in 4 hours 25 minutes. Now, Exeter fans that know me, right, know that I am not a runner, right? Although Exeter fans may or may not remember the pitch in for City. So something we did for our football club. Our manager at the time, which we'll come on to talk about, something like that, said the pitch was terrible, right? And was affecting our performance. And money's so tight, we did fundraisers for it and pitched in. And for a pub bet, I ran a half marathon in Exeter called the Great West Run, which is one of the hilliest half marathons in the country, apparently. I should have done Peterborough for somebody who told me that it does half marathons all the time. So I sort of would like to claim half a marathon. So, but I will say, well done you. And that brings on to another subject. We were talking about, just to finish, we were talking about engagement and voting and that sort of stuff before we started. And the manager at the time, really great guy, by the way, and it was one of those situations where sort of like almost like a married couple that had been in love for a long time ended up getting divorced, right? And part of that was because the fans voted not to extend his contract. And when we were talking, you found that a bit of a surprise. That maybe might not happen with your setup. Would that happen like that in Motherwell, maybe?
I can't see that ever happening. I think that members of the Welsh Society have an understanding that they're very much part of the fan ownership model, and their opinions valued, and they can feed into what's happening at the football club. But I don't think that we would ever expect to be able to have a vote to sack the manager. That said, when things are going tough and people, I think you can tell when a manager's lost their way, can't you? When the fans are certainly being very vocal on social media or on the ground, or when the chants are changing from positivity to get them out. Essentially, you can see that, but I don't think we would ever put it to a vote of our members as to should we get rid of the manager.
For those that did it, it actually caused quite a lot of it. It's probably a case where our club has been so disconnected for a period of time as a fans-run club, because it it was to do with the length of contract, and it was all about reducing the risk. We didn't sack him. We served notice they weren't going to extend the contract, but we would potentially renegotiate. So, but I think that got misled in the process, shall we say? So it ended up getting difficult. But and actually, the guy that came on before you, it was a bit of an Exeter EFL fan of the year. Ended up going on the pitch around the time we went to Wembley, lost, and then the manager went. He summed it up very nicely. It was a very awkward situation. So, sorry, just to conclude, do you vote on things, or do the board do it for you?
We do actually. One of the most notable ones over the years that I can remember, which might be quite interesting to some people that are listening, was when Rangers had their financial difficulty and they went down to the bottom tier. That there was talk of fast tracking Rangers back to the Premiership. And they asked the clubs to vote on this.
Yeah.
Now, for those thinking, well, they got themselves in that situation themselves, and they probably deserve to be down there. Why would we want them back in the top flight at the expense of the other, 40 clubs that are in Scotland? The reason for that is that the money that Rangers and Celtic bring to each team that's in the league is ridiculous. When they come and play at Fir Park, they bring round about 4,000, 5,000 fans every game. So you can just imagine at £30 a ticket roughly how much that brings in. And if you're lucky or unlucky enough to play them, get into the top six, you'll play them potentially 2 or 3 times at your home stadium. So the money there is significant loss when they then go down to the bottom tier. So there was many clubs that were saying, oh yeah, we'll put them back into the top flight, get them up here, we need the money. What we said at the time was, well, we're a fan-owned club, let's have a vote and let our members decide. So Motherwell fans overwhelmingly voted to say that we do not want Rangers going back into the top flight, and they remained where they were. So that was something that we put in the hands of our members, and they voted the way that I would have voted as well, I have to say. But if that was not a fan-owned club and it was just a decision of a businessman who was thinking of the bottom, the bottom line, I can see why they would want to fast track them back to where they were. Other things we've had recently is we are renaming our South Stand, which is where the away fans are hosted on a match day. And we put that out to the supporters as well. Here's a number of club legends that we think are honourable enough to get their name on the stand, and we give them that vote as well. That's going to be happening soon. It's going to be the Tommy McLean stand, who Tommy was our manager in 1991 when we last won the Scottish Cup. So a legend at the football club, and probably well overdue that he gets the credit of having his name above the door.
Brilliant. And you know what? That's a great note to see fans clubs in action. And I know we could talk for hours. I know that. I want to say thank you for coming on, and it just shows Motherwell is in a great place and being true to its roots, which is what our club's all about. So Gary Caldwell, if you're listening, club secretary, if you're listening, get us a friendly up in Motherwell. I'll book my hotels and we'll come up and make a bit of noise. Yeah.
Brilliant. It would be a pleasure to have you here and to welcome you to Fir Park, and extend that welcome to all the Exeter fans if it does happen as well. We look forward to seeing you in the local pubs, and and all the best for the rest of the season as well.
I suspect it might be a little bit different to the green fields and agricultural base of the West Country. Well, if you come down, we'll make sure you drink loads of cider and farmhouse scrumpy, if that's all right. That
sounds perfect to me. I have to say that where you are in the country is potentially more beautiful than a post-industrial steel town. But yeah, I'm sure that the people will make up for the hospitality.
Well, thank you very much, Derek. That's an absolute fabulous interview, I think, with Motherwell, the Wells Society. And it just shows you it's tough in Scotland when you're not one of the top two, not very big place within the Glasgow conurbation, but certainly pushing hard and a very proud football club. And, similar challenges to Exeter City. So good luck, Motherwell, and we'll follow your progress. Right, the day after Ipswich Town. 920 odd Exeter fans. Absolute credit for travelling that far. Not the result we wanted, and not the greatest way to finish our last away game. But as we always do, we keep smiling through. Let's pack the park as we're going to for Morecambe, and hope that's a nice day in the sun for us, and maybe a chance to remind Morecambe of the day they beat us at Wembley. Not that I'm bitter. Good luck to the ladies team. Today they'll be playing, and also Exeter's deaf team, I believe, are playing today. The season's not quite decided in terms of the championship, and personally I'd like to wish Ipswich all the best. I hope you do well. And following on for the next podcast, there'll probably be a fans one coming up. In the meantime, it's coming up to the coronation weekend, bank holidays. Enjoy your time. Take care.